You're now watching one of the best attacks I've ever seen at Resurrection Airsoft. It's Red Team taking Blue Team's base during Bomb the Base in our April 2014 game. This video easily makes these guys look like they were born to do this, that they were born knowing how to attack a base, to take an objective, to eliminate a target, but they just weren't. These guys have not always been this good. Through trial and error, these guys have learned how to be Pointmen. Pointmen who know how to take an objective to lead a force to victory. They've persevered through a lot of trial and error on the field. They've persevered through a lot of times of not being anywhere near as good as they are now. And they've become great leaders on the field for it. They're a good analogy for our first Pointman in the Pointman series. Moses. Moses is a guy that a lot of people know at least a little bit about. A lot of people know that he was floated down the river when he was born during a time of persecution, that he was raised by the Pharaoh's daughter in the Pharaoh's castle. A lot of people know that he was involved in sending plagues down in Egypt to try and set the Israelites free. A lot of people know about the Red Sea being split. We know all these things, we've heard the stories, we've seen the movies, but what we tend to forget, I think, is that Moses was rejected quite a bit in his life. Not everything went smooth for Moses. The first time, he grew up a privileged prince in Egypt, but he was really a Hebrew, an Israelite. And he saw his Israelite family members, relatives, be abused as slaves. And the first time he got really upset about this and wanted to do something about it, he murdered an Egyptian in cold blood. But it didn't do any good. His own people, the Israelites, didn't respect him for doing it. They kind of mocked him. The Egyptians wanted him dead, so he had to go into exile. So he goes into exile for all these years, and then God talks to him from a burning bush, and most of us know that story. A lot of times we forget that Moses didn't really want to go back. He tried to come up with an excuse for not going back, but in the end, Moses kind of goes back against his will. And then, his own people don't really believe him. The first time he goes to tell Pharaoh to let his people go, Pharaoh makes it 100 times worse for his people than it ever was. And then, we have the plagues, and we all know that story. Let my people go. No. Well, here's a plague. Let my people go. No. Well, here's a plague. But, we know that part of the story. We know where God sends the plagues, and, Moses is the messenger who helps his people be free. And we know about them leaving for the Red Sea, but we forgot that he started off all of this with rejection and failure. Before he was such a great leader, such a great point man, if we can call it that right now, he failed a lot, and he was rejected. And even after he got the Israelites out of the wilderness, he was rejected. So the point of this first Point Man video is that Point Men persevere through failure. Point Men persevere through trials so that they can develop new skills. Here are 2 verses to reinforce this, and I would also challenge you to read the story of Moses and the Israelites in Exodus.